I could go back in time and tell myself, do not read this book, I would. I've got 3 words for you. Step family, mountains, and threesomes. Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well and that you've had a great start to your New Year's. I actually had a birthday recently, so that's how I've started my new year, and it was a great one. I have entered a new decade. I'll let you all guess what decade that might be, but it was such a nice day. I went to see Hamilton and I just got spoiled overall. So yeah, I'm currently in a nice heated blanket. It is absolutely freezing cold right now in London. So talking about the new year, I have been seeing quite a lot of people, of course, making New Year's resolutions about wanting to read more, and it just got me thinking about how I kind of started getting back into reading in my adulthood, and I am definitely guilty of going to Booktok and Booktube and picking up a book I saw a lot of people were talking about in the genre I like, which at that time was pretty much only romance, and yeah, had given it a go. And like, no regrets at all. I definitely found some amazing books that way, and books that are now books I would happily recommend to a lot of people, especially those who are starting off reading again. But I also read some books that, considering how popular and hyped they are, I had a lot higher expectations on and just generally didn't really enjoy it as a whole. So starting off strong, we have Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Now, Colleen Hoover is one of those authors that I think when you're first getting into reading, you will hear her name everywhere. She definitely has taken like the Booktok community and Booktube community by storm. Her books are extremely popular, and yeah, when I first was looking for a book to read, this book was coming up everywhere, and so I was curious. But I don't want it to seem like I dislike Colleen Hoover. There are definitely some books that I have read by her that I have enjoyed, and I know there's a lot of people who either love her and are like die-hard fans, and people who just really dislike her. And I'm kind of just indifferent. I don't mind her, so I think her books are alright. Some books are better than others, and some books I have not really liked. And Ugly Love is one of them. And I was surprised because it was one of the most anticipated books when I was starting off my reading journey to read, because everyone loved it. So Ugly Love follows a girl called Tate and a guy called Miles. I am pretty sure most people have read it, but just in case you haven't, this is kind of it's got a bit of forbidden love-esque trope to it. It is her brother's best friend, and it's also like a I can't love you sort of vibe. So our 2 main characters are extremely attracted to each other, and that is kind of how their relationship starts. But Miles makes it clear that he is emotionally unavailable to Tate, and Tate has no time for love, so she is absolutely fine with that. She does not expect to catch feelings, and that's kind of how they start off their relationship. And yeah, at the beginning of the book, you know, it was okay. There was a cute character there in the building they live in, who was the old man who kind of like mans the lift and is like quite chatty, and that was nice. And then as you kind of start to get into the juice of the book, what you find out is, and I don't think this will be a spoiler, but if you don't want to know anything, then maybe don't watch this part. But what you find out is Miles has a past of someone called Rachel, who he is very, very hung up on, and it is why he is so emotionally unavailable to Tate. And you see his perspective from the past, as in how he grows to get feelings for Rachel and their relationship and what happens to make him the way he is now. And then from Tate's perspective, you very much see her falling for Miles. And so the book is kind of odd because you're like trying to root for this new couple, right? Tate and Miles. You want them to get together, but also you're finding out why Miles loved Rachel so much. So you kind of almost get a bit confused about who should you be rooting for here, Miles and Rachel or Miles and Tate. That was my first kind of like, interesting. Not like a bad or good, but meh. Then, where this book really took a 360 turn for me is just the way that Miles ends up treating Tate in our book. I just could not get on board with the whole, oh, I want you so much, but I can't have you because I can't love you sort of vibe he was given. And I know a lot of people love that trope, and maybe it's just a me thing. I wasn't a fan of it in this book at least. It just came off as it came off as wanting to make a problem or wanting to make tension out of something really silly. Like, it was so much miscommunication and secrecy that just felt, I don't know, I didn't buy into it. I wasn't sold. And I actually just started getting really annoyed at Tate. I was like, Tate, this guy is treating you terribly. Miles is not worth your time. And she just kept going back to him no matter how awful he would treat her or how terribly she would feel. She really just did not put herself first in their relationship. And I just don't think it's a good way to, I don't know, I don't think we should be promoting that kind of love, where you are almost having to beg for someone's love. It just felt like it was building up so much for something that was just so meh. Their relationship was so meh, and in fact it was quite toxic a lot of the time. So yeah, I mean, this book has got spice to it as well, which I have nothing against a bit of spice in a book, but because of how unemotionally available Miles is for quite a lot of the book, it just didn't really do much for me personally. I like to have the emotional connection in there, and I could feel it from Tate, but we were going so far into the past for Miles and his love for Rachel that when it was his time for Tate, it just felt lackluster. It just wasn't really doing what it had to do, in my opinion. But yeah, I think I gave this a 3, but looking back now, I'd give it a 2. But it definitely is a book where you can get through it quickly, and I definitely got through it quickly, but for what I got, I just didn't feel that oomph that a lot of people thought, would happen when you read this book. So yeah, this is my first controversial opinion, but Ugly Love, nah. Now, the next book I'm going to talk about, I absolutely wish I did not spend my life reading this book. If I could go back in time and tell myself, do not read this book, I would. And this book, if I could give it a star, would be like -1. It is Credence by Penelope Douglas, and this book is doing wonders on TikTok and Booktube and everywhere, because it's like, why? How? I'm confused. I am genuinely confused about how you even come to think of an idea to write this book. And I've only ever read one other Penelope Douglas book, and that was Birthday Girl. And I know she has a tendency to write scandalous, forbidden romance books. And I'm here for a little bit of forbidden romance, a little bit of spice in a book. That is all fine with me. And I wanted to get into some more niches of romance. And so I was looking at forbidden romance a little bit, and that's how I came to find Credence. And I should have read more about it before I bought it, but I just saw it on people's lists and I thought, oh yeah, I read her Birthday Girl book, that was okay, maybe I'll like this one. And I've got 3 words for you: step family, mountains, and threesomes. I don't know if anyone's listening to that thinking, oh, that sounds great. But trust me, it is just it is an experience. It is an experience that I wish I could unexperience. So, our main character is called Tyrion or Tiernan. I can't really pronounce her name. And her step uncle, Jake, offers to take her in under his wing when her parents die. Now, her parents were famous, so she is very tempted by the idea of escaping to somewhere secluded where she can grieve in peace and also get to know some family because she was not that close to her parents. And her uncle Jake has two sons, Noah and Caleb, and they all live in this beautiful cabin in the mountains. And things start to get a little bit weird because in the winter they can't leave their house because of the snow, and so they have to prepare for the winter, and there's just a lot of weird things that happen in their preparation for the winter. And there's some tension that builds up in this book between our main character and her step family. And even saying it just sounds absurd. So there is some very, very, very saucy, steamy, spicy, X-rated scenes in this book. So if you're not ready and you are curious about reading this book, just know that when you go into it, you will be shocked. I was shocked for sure. It's definitely the spiciest book I've ever read. And I don't mind a bit of spice, but this spice just felt, it leaves you feeling dirty. Like you read it and you think, ugh, what did I just read? So essentially, she gets with her step uncle and she also gets with her step cousins. And there is even a scene where she gets with her step cousins at the same time. And it's just ridiculous. Nothing in this book makes sense. The book is ridiculously long. It has no business being this long when it's literally just about her relationships with these step family. And I mean, it touches on her grief, but essentially you're reading a step family romance, and I just don't think I was prepared going into this book for what I was going to get. You know, I've watched EastEnders and I've watched the whole Sharon and Dennis, and they were step siblings, I think, and I don't know why I was expecting it to be like that, where it was very pure. Like, it wasn't pure, of course that is very raunchy, but they were in love, and you felt that love from if you ever watched EastEnders. I know EastEnders isn't the most popular show anymore, but I am a die-hard EastEnders watcher. But I was kind of thinking maybe it'd be similar to that. It's not. It's really not. It's not. The love, if you can call it that, in the story is just odd. It's odd. The main characters are very problematic and I mean, it's definitely a book that I guess can make you feel curious, but I'm just here to tell you it is not worth it. These amount of pages, it is not worth the read unless you are really, really into forbidden romances with very questionable characters that make wild choices and are a little bit backwards in terms of like their thinking and their opinions towards women, and yeah, if you like that kind of vibe then maybe you'll enjoy this, but I did not. So that is Credence by Penelope Douglas. I am very, very intrigued by this author. She definitely does not write books that are, I don't know, they are taboo. If you like taboo, she is your author, because Birthday Girl was about a girl who basically fell in love with her ex-boyfriend's dad. And, you know, that was pretty raunchy. But this... whew, So the next book I've got is You've Reached Sam by Dustin Thau or Tao, and even on the book it says TikTok sensation on it, and everyone that I saw reading this book was sobbing, crying, dying about this book and how emotional and sad it was. And whilst I can get a bit nervous reading inside a book, I do get very emotionally attached. I love them. They are great and I love the roller coaster you go on. So I was very excited to find out what this book was about. And we follow a girl called Julie. She's 17 and her boyfriend Sam, who has just died. And Julie is absolutely heartbroken and she wants to hear his voice one more time. She calls him, and even though he's dead, he picks up the phone. And you're like, how is this possible? How am I speaking to my dead boyfriend? And it follows her journey with grief, and the idea is interesting, I'd say. But I just didn't find Julie very likable as a character. I found the book to be quite slow in the beginning. I wasn't really that bothered about the side characters either. It just kind of felt like it fell flat. Like the idea was so good, but the execution was so, do you know? And I really was excited to cry over a book, and I was really hoping that this book would deliver that, and it just didn't. Now, I wouldn't be like, don't read this book, it's terrible, it's awful. It's not, but it's just fine. And I think if you go in expecting it to be okay, then you'll either be pleasantly surprised or you'll get what you expected. But because I went into this thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be getting the next The Fault in Our Stars kind of vibe from a book from when I was a teenager, this just wasn't it. And I know it's a YA, but so was The Fault in Our Stars, and that book was just phenomenally done, in my opinion. It was so good. It really got your heartstrings, whereas this book, I mean, yeah, it just was okay. And our last book that we're going to be talking about is A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. Um, Once again, I was very sucked in by the premise of this book will break your heart. This book will leave you wondering how you can ever move on from this love story. And I was here for it. I was like, do you know what? I am ready for my heart to be broken. I am ready to cry and sob over these characters. And I think, again, it was the expectations versus reality. It definitely is sad. I did feel like, oh, that was sad after reading this, but I didn't feel the way that people say it made them feel on TikTok and Booktok, and maybe that was because it was so hyped up. I don't know. This book follows our main character Poppy and Rune, and I did like these characters, to be fair. I liked the introduction of how they met, and I am quite into the whole friends to lovers trope, and that is definitely what this book is. They were friends to lovers, and it's cute. However, one thing I absolutely do not like in books is miscommunication when it is just absolutely avoidable. And in this book, they grow up being best friends, and Rune has to move away, and they lose contact, and it's a big secret as to why did they lose contact, what happened. And then when Rune comes back, there's tensions between them because of the fact that Tilly basically stopped talking to him and Rune has no idea why, and Rune has kind of lost the plot because of it. He's turned into a bad boy, and I really did not like that. I did not buy it. I found it really cringe how much Tilly tries to convince us that Rune is now a bad boy with this stereotypical, he's smoking now, he's wearing a leather jacket. Like, it was just, I didn't enjoy that character development, and I didn't buy it. It just felt very forced, and it felt like it was a way to make the characters feel more realistic and feel more interesting, but it kind of fell flat for me. Um, he didn't, I didn't believe he was a bad boy, and that kind of spoilt Rune for me, to be honest, because in the beginning he's such a sweet character. You really do like him, and then yeah, he kind of goes downhill for me. But then you find out what made them fall out of contact, and it is sad, but there are probably a lot better done books out there, and this just was meh. It fell flat. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of this video about popular Booktok books that just didn't really land for me personally, but I would love to know if any of the books I've spoken about are books that you've enjoyed, and yeah, just your opinions on them in general, and maybe books that you've got recommended by Booktok that you didn't like, because they could be the ones that I personally did like. Who knows? I'd be intrigued to find out. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll stick around for the next video, and if you do, I will see you there.